Hey, this is Benjamin Boyce. Welcome to my podcast or YouTube channel, depending on how you are shoving this into your brain body envelope. Today's interview is with Chiara, who is a detrans woman. This is kind of confusing for me. I don't know how to say this. She was a she, and for a couple years during her teen time, decided that she was a man and did a lot of work to become a man in her eyes and in the eyes of the society. Then she detransitioned or desisted with that path in life. We get into her story, what informed her desire to be a trans person, and we also talk about her project. She's working with a collective of post-trans women who are trying to provide resources to young women who develop rapid onset gender dysphoria. This is in no way an anti-trans screed. This is just some people who are trying to give information out there that not necessarily combats, but gives an alternative to the very strong pro-trans, trans-affirmative push going on within the medical establishment, the media establishment, and various other sectors of society. So this is just resources for people who are wondering about this stuff. And this is also a wonderful just insight into a young person's life. And I got a lot out of it. Here's Chiara. All right, there we go. Well, hello, Chiara.
There, how's it going?
How has your week been?
Pretty solid, lots of work.
Yeah. Are you
Not much
talking about
else.
your 9-to-5 job or your side projects?
Well, the 9 to 5 job takes up, most of the day. And then, I have been working on the project. We have some new content in the works.
Oh, cool.
Uh,
And this is
some
Peak
editing stuff.
Resilience.
Yes. Yep.
And you guys just started it up pretty recently, right? Like within the last
Yeah, I
month?
think our first video went up like February 1st or 2nd.
Okay.
So it's pretty new. We've had a lot of really good feedback so far, which I've been happy with. So,
Yeah, I was just scrolling. You guys have some posts on Reddit and some interaction going on there,
hmm
as well as
yeah,
on
it
Twitter.
helps that Helena, one of the people involved, is a moderator of the RD Trans subreddit. So she's been getting some good posts and feedback on there, which has been awesome as well.
RD trans?
Yeah, it's just DTrans is the subreddit.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
r/d trans.
hmm
Right. And is that DE trans or just D trans? Okay.
DETRANS. Yeah.
Cool. And how long has this been in the works? There's 4 of you right now.
Just
That's
4 of us. Yeah.
the video that I saw. When did you guys start speaking together and thinking about doing something like
Um,
this?
we got together through a couple of mutual friends, and we were able to fund like our first initial meetup, just like a week or two before the first video went up. So end of January. Um, yeah, so we've only met up the one time. We were able to produce a couple of videos and a podcast, but hopefully we'll be able to get together again.
And what's the mission statement for this?
Essentially, we want to raise awareness because detransition and like desistance is generally something that's very much silenced, as I'm sure you're aware.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, just giving a voice to that, people who have detransitioned or desisted, and we provide a lot of support to people who may be questioning whether or not they're trans,
Hmm.
questioning their gender in general. We want to be able to reach young people who this is really affecting, because we've been through it, like we know what it's like and
Hmm.
the bad side of a lot of it. So
And you 4 are rather young yourselves. I mean, geologically speaking.
yeah, I'm 21,
Yeah.
2 of us are 20, the other is 22. So yeah,
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
definitely.
And what's the difference between desistance and detransition?
So, I mean, a lot of people use those interchangeably.
Okay.
We've been keeping it pretty specific since I am desisted, which means I never actually medically transitioned.
Okay.
Um, I did want to, but I ended up not being able to. I just identified as trans for a couple of years and then eventually desisted from that identity.
Okay.
But the other 3 actually did medically transition for over a year, all of them. So we consider them detransitioned.
And by medical, you don't mean surgical, you mean hormonal or
No,
both.
only hormonal. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And what I'd like to go as personal as you want to go. This is just an opportunity for you to speak your truth, as the case may be. But on a larger picture scale, it seems that your generation is, I don't want to like fearmonger or anything, but you folks are kind of at risk of this kind of this sea change in gender identity. And it seems like you guys have the skills, the tools, and the backing of the older generations to kind of just leap all in pretty young. You're very
Sure.
much encouraged.
For sure.
And do you think that there's got to be a mix of good and bad in that, in a way, or do you come down hard on gender, just the whole process of questioning gender? There's a lot more risks than benefits at this point in the conversation.
You mean risks of what we're saying and like our position?
Risks of people making very big decisions very young.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or maybe even throw themselves into several years of just questioning stuff that might derail them from working on other issues. Where do you come down on like the questioning of gender, and how did you start to question gender as a concept and your own gender?
Yeah, so for me personally, I began questioning when I was probably recently turned 16, I want to say, approximately. It was kind of a gradual process. I sort of fell into it by chance for a couple reasons, and ended up on social media. I was a sophomore in high school, so I was dealing with that lovely situation as it is. I was also, very socially awkward. I had an event, which I lost a lot of friends at the end of my sophomore year.
Yeah.
So that sort of pushed me into a little more isolation, a little more social media. It was mainly like Tumblr and YouTube. There's a ton of like FTM transition videos on YouTube, which is like progression of getting on testosterone and, all of that. You may have seen those.
Yeah.
They were very prevalent. So I got kind of almost like addicted to watching those. Like I would watch them honestly like so many per day, like hours. I would spend all my time on YouTube, Tumblr, just social media in general.
What fascinated you about it?
So I would say around 2015 is when I think a lot of this was really starting to take hold, and that's when I first started being exposed to it, I guess, right around that turn when it was just becoming a thing, like more than it ever sort of had been before. Or I guess maybe more just publicly on the internet thing. So yeah, it was sort of like everyone who was putting these videos up was kind of idolized in a way. Like all these trans guys would have like hundreds, thousands of comments under their videos, like, praising them for being brave, for being handsome, all of this stuff. They're just completely idolized by everyone for, I don't know what reasons, but it was very attractive, and especially, for someone who was more of like a social outcast or more of like kind of on the loner side, that potential was very attractive. And yeah.
So do you think that you were, what kind of attracted you to transness as a lifestyle was more social than personal, more external than internal? Or?
I mean, it was definitely a mix of the two. I just want to emphasize the aspect of the social media because, that was just a big part of it for me and for a lot of people that I knew as well. But no, that was definitely not. Honestly, I wouldn't even say that was the main reason behind it. There were probably couple of different factors at play. There was a lot of internalized homophobia for sure.
Okay.
That I never admitted to myself at the time, of course, but now I can look back and see that was a pretty big issue for me at the time. And it's that ties into the social media thing because when you're repressing your sexuality as a female and you see these videos of these guys with all these girls praising them, that was a draw as well. So that was a big thing. There's also some like trauma aspects that were probably a large factor as well.
From your own life, from your personal relationships and stuff like that. And how would entering into a trans identity or lifestyle, how do you think that was a coping mechanism for trauma, or how was that informed by trauma? Because it seems like your own experience probably is replicated in other people's experience. Yeah. If we can abstract it a little bit, like how does trauma push one into that?
Yeah, so I think trauma is a huge factor for a ton of people, specifically like trans men, like women who transition to men. So essentially, like as a woman, when you're subjected to like sexual abuse or like sexual trauma, it's because you are a female. You're
Mm,
targeted because you're
okay.
female. So just that aspect by itself, for me, it was definitely subconscious at the time. I just sort of wasn't able to handle the realization of that trauma. It was
Huh.
a thing of it makes you want to kind of run from being female when you come to terms with the fact that you're a target of sexual violence for simply being female.
Hmm.
Other people. Yeah.
And
So I wouldn't. Yeah.
you
I was
wouldn't.
just I wouldn't say that was the exact thing
Yeah.
for like everyone, but I think that's
Yeah.
something a lot of people can relate to. Yeah.
So it seems like there's like kind of two parts to that. One is to not be attractive as a female. So if you eliminate the femaleness, then you'll eliminate attracting the element of trauma.
Absolutely.
And there's this other aspect of if in terms of homosexuality, if I put on, if I act and perform as a male, I will be attractive to those who I'm attracted to, which would be
Mhm.
female. So it seems
Exactly.
like there's this attractor, this push and this pull with regards to trauma and
Mhm.
sexuality.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Um, yeah, I would completely agree.
And um, and this is a question, and it always comes up. And thank you for speaking with me. This is all very personal stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm a perfect stranger to you. But one thing that I wonder about a lot with regards to transitioning is how much is it informed by a concept of gender and a concept and a feeling, a sexual feeling or a sexuality.
Mhm.
Because it seems like the theory about gender is, at least the social constructionist theory, like you can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always kind of like this unspoken part of it, like that's directly informed by the desire and
Oh,
eros.
absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it always, it's such like a big, diverse topic. Like dysphoria or desire to transition for everyone is so different. But yeah, I think that is important to talk about. Like sexuality is definitely um, a large part of it. Like I've always said, internalized homophobia.
Mm,
Um, it's not all like homosexual people who are trans, obviously, but a lot of the people who may be homosexual who decide to transition. I think a big, huge factor of that is internalized homophobia,
mm.
or homophobic friends, family members. That's a lot of pressure. That's why in places like Russia, transition is forced onto gay people.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
at least
forced
from the
transition is
male
a thing.
part, it's a chemical castration route.
Exactly,
Huh.
exactly. Yeah. So
That's really fascinating that it's much easier for people to accept somebody changing genders than being attracted to the same gender.
yeah, it's wild. I don't
What do you
think
think about
I don't
that?
understand that. I I think people are really good at sort of I'm struggling to put this into words. Like it's easier to just like turn a blind eye to what someone used to be, as long as right now they are fitting your definition of
Hmm.
straight, heterosexual pairing.
Hmm.
It's easier to sort of block out and forget the fact that they used to be the opposite sex or
Yeah.
whatever.
Huh.
That's I haven't given that a lot of thought. That's just sort of my initial opinion on that. That's a really interesting question,
Yeah.
actually.
It's
I would
almost.
think it's more of like, yeah, that's just an easier thing to grasp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like in a certain respect, transition is used to de-queer people. Like it's a hyper queerness
Mhm.
that ends up like
Yeah.
delimiting that queerness of the
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. It's so gay that it's straight.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go full circle. Full circle.
And as you transition, so you said you mainly transitioned via social performance then
Yeah. Yeah.
rather
So
than hormone.
essentially, yeah. I did. So I was 16 to 18
Okay.
at the time when I really actively wanted hormones, and I was still living with my mother at that time.
Okay.
And she was, my mom's not homophobic at all. She just, thought about the transition thing. She basically eventually came to the conclusion that she wasn't going to allow that while I was living with her, which of course now I'm very grateful for.
Hmm.
I'm glad she didn't allow me to transition. But at the time, I was very distressed about it. I spent 2 years like fighting tooth and nail with her to allow me to take hormones. So if she had allowed it, I absolutely would have.
Do you think that there's a possibility that, I mean, there could be laws at some point put in place that this is a form of child abuse to not let somebody transition?
I think it's the opposite. I think transitioning children, and I guess I'm specifically talking about, like young children.
Yeah.
I think that is child abuse.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely, like, I can't even believe that that's something that's allowed.
But if you had recourse to report your mother for abusing you, for not letting you transition, would you have gone that route, or were you tempted to go around her back?
I mean, so I didn't have a lot of autonomy, like a 16, 17-year-old. So I think yes, like I did. At that point, if I had been able to get hormones like behind her back, I absolutely would have. It just really wasn't an option. I didn't have transportation or anything like that. Couldn't get to a clinic. But yes, I would have. As for reporting, I don't know. She and I totally hated her at that point in my life. I thought she was like killing me by not allowing me to transition. So I don't think that I would have reported her in such a way that would have like gotten her into to go to jail or something. I don't think I would have done that. So no, I'm going to go ahead and say no. I don't think I would have reported her. But if there was a way for me to report that and just be able to get hormones without anything bad happening to her, I think, yes, I would have done that. If I've been able to go over her head legally as a minor.
Yeah.
Yes, I would have done that for sure. Because it was fixated on it was all I could think about.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I know it took over my life for more than 2 years. It was crazy.
Were there people, was this all via the internet, or were there people around you in meet space that did you have a group, social group that were involved with you in this capacity?
Of like other trans people
or trans people or
allies, whatever. No, not really. Okay. Like I said, I think a big thing that sort of got me into it was the fact that I lost all my friends when I was like just before I turned 16. And so no, I mean, I had like maybe 2 or 3 like childhood friends that I'd known forever that I still had around, but they weren't trans. I didn't have any friends who were trans. I knew of like one trans guy and one like non-binary person at my school that I probably looked up to a lot for sure, but I didn't have like a circle of friends like some people did.
So you were kind of on your own and you had the internet.
Yeah.
And your mom was against you going the medical route.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you end up manifesting your transness? Like, in what way did you transition into maleness?
So I got a very short haircut, shorter than now. It was like a crew cut, like a total men's like army cut. I thought I was hot shit. I would shop in specifically only the men's section. I wore all I thought I was cool with my saggy pants and stuff. So I just wanted to look as much like a man as possible, and I bound my chest and stuff like that. So I basically did every cosmetic change I possibly could. It was
Did you start to edit your body movements and your voice? Did you take on another persona, I guess?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I consider that a period of being completely dissociated from my actual body.
Wow.
I would try to lower my voice purposefully, and I'm lucky I didn't damage my voice, but the way I was talking, it was crazy. You could barely understand what I was saying. But yeah, I tried to deepen it as much as possible. I definitely tried to walk with a little bit of a swagger or whatever, or walk like a dude, that doesn't mean anything, but
yeah, well, yeah. But that was there a kind of a psychological persona that you had? I assume you changed names or.
Yeah, I didn't publicly change names, but I definitely had one that I went by in my head and online for sure.
Okay.
So I basically so I was very dissociated. I was living in this almost alter ego that wasn't me, but I thought I was so convinced that was who I was, that I'd been born into the wrong body, that I was destined to be male,
And did that produce a strain on you internally, you think, a psychological strain, you were trying to be somebody that you weren't, or what was that like then?
I mean, at the time, it felt right, but I mean, I
Hmm.
believe that there's always a pretty strong like emotional and mental strain if you're putting that much effort into living like a dishonest experience.
Hmm.
I just say that by like that's not who I truly was. I mean
Okay.
by dishonest. Um, and yeah, that's a lot of just because like I said, it's not healthy to have one thing that you focus on
Yeah.
and spend all your energy cultivating this literally like fake persona
Hmm.
that was just born out of, I don't know, fear
Hmm.
and repression and reluctance to actually accept myself.
Hmm. That
Yeah.
that's one question, and I don't mean to be derogatory towards somebody who is embarking on this path or in the middle of this path, but one question that I have is that you're pouring so much time and energy and focus, so much of your life into creating something to be,
Mhm.
where you're putting everything else on pause, like mastering a skill, like
Yeah.
in the world other than a social skill. I guess it's kind of like you're pouring all your energy into acting. Um,
Yeah,
and
for
and
sure.
what's the benefit from that? And I guess in a way, like I'm sure that you have learned things about yourself by going through this. What are some of the things that you learned, aside from like that you were trying to you were off the mark at that point? But what are some things that you carry with you from those 2 years?
I mean, that's a really good question, actually. I definitely I feel more grateful for the body that I have now
Hmm.
because I feel, when you spend so much energy trying to reject something and then finally manage to learn how to accept it, you appreciate it so much more.
Huh.
Um, I appreciate my body for what it is now. I'm mostly, happy with it, always in relative to how I felt before. Um, so I feel like I'm grateful for that. I guess I learned that I really can't fully escape things that have happened to me. You
Hmm.
can't escape something that's happened to you by changing your appearance or changing your body. It's
Hmm.
always going to be there. You may be able to potentially, prevent something else from happening, but you can't escape. And repressing that in the form of changing your appearance isn't going to
Hmm.
be helpful. It just further represses it, and you're still going to have to deal with it later.
Hmm.
Plus, deal with all this other shit you've been doing.
Yeah.
So
It's like
that was,
wearing camouflage for some environment that you've left
yeah,
behind.
exactly, exactly. And I truly believed that like this would. I think part of it is it's like you're leaving your old self behind. That's what I felt. I felt like I was going to be a completely different person,
Hmm.
like my male self, like was going to be totally disconnected, like in a way, like just a totally different person. And I was going to be able to leave my female self and my trauma and my past,
Hmm.
all of that behind. And I think I truly like believed that I was actually going to be able to escape that by becoming a different person. And I learned that it's really not the case. Not at all, unfortunately.
Do you
You
feel
can't
that?
change that.
Do you feel close still to your masculinity? Do you feel like you have a masculinity that you cultivated and that you understand now, or do you have
Yeah,
insights into that?
yeah, for sure. So, you know, when I was in that period of time, I rejected anything feminine, and I was so wrapped up in everything having to be masculine. And now, yeah, like I guess I embrace masculinity and femininity. I
Hmm.
don't I don't really believe in like gender. I just believe in biological sex, and then
Hmm.
I believe people can do
Okay.
whatever they want.
Yeah.
I get called a turf for that, but whatever, I'm used to it. It's fine. It doesn't affect me anymore. But basically, yeah, I just believe that you are your biological sex. That's what it is, and you can present yourself and express yourself in whatever way you want to. Masculinity, femininity, if you want to call it that, whatever, just like exist.
But there
And
is something that is emergent then from your female sex into your femininity, or into your female gender. Or do you think that they're completely different and disconnected?
I mean, so I guess what I was saying is I don't subscribe to the idea of having a gender because gender and sex, like I believe, are two different things.
Okay.
Right. So you have biological sex, and then often the two words are conflated. But like, just for
Yeah.
me, I tend to separate them just because I believe that gender is just a set of like roles that is put
Okay.
onto people by like a patriarchal society.
Okay.
And And I think that's regressive. I just wish that people could,
Hmm.
that we would allow people, I guess is the better phrasing, to be their biological sex, but, you know, present however they want to be. You know,
Yeah.
a man can present like feminine or whatever and not be a woman automatically, you know,
Hmm.
or vice versa. I guess that's what I believe. So yeah, I do embrace, I guess, what you would call masculinity and femininity. But I guess what I'm trying to convey is that I don't believe, because I believe that ties in with gender, and I just don't really believe in gender or in gendering people. I
Hmm.
just believe in letting them exist, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit of like a strange concept. But
Yeah.
it's like gender abolitionists, if you've heard that before.
What's that?
Term. Yeah, basically it's just what I just described.
Okay.
It's just like leaving behind gender roles and just
Okay.
literally just allowing people to exist however they want without
Okay.
making it, you know.
But the way that people respond to a feminine entity
Huh.
is still going to have like you're saying, like there's a truth to what you're saying about
Mhm.
there was something in your life that sorry, hold on just a second. There was something in your life that that happened to you because of your femininity or because of your
Because of
femaleness.
being female, yeah, it's not the
Yeah.
same as femininity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are there not? Okay. This is a hard conversation. I feel like we're going to get derailed, but I just
Yeah.
I just feel that there are aspects of the feminine that I think of like more in terms of archetypes or like mythological characteristics. Like there's a aspect of beauty or an aspect of justice that makes
Uh-huh.
sense in my mind on a dramatic level, on an imaginary level when I think in terms of gender, when I gender certain concepts, like war, like the god of war, like the Greek pantheon. Like there's something
Mhm.
really eternally functional. I don't know about true, but functional about using gender to conceptualize the world. That's different than how I present myself or how I categorize other people.
Oh,
However,
yeah, 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 for
a
sure.
woman is going to have certain emergent characteristics that when a man puts those characteristics on, there's something that I have to repress about like my knee jerk reaction of thinking that's ridiculous. Like a man acting in
Uh,
a certain feminine way is just kind of it's ridiculous because I can tell that it's not like an outpouring of like just their sex. I think that gender is always informed by sex, and also informed by desire, desire for that which we want, and like categories such as like homosexual and heterosexual. Like the homosexual is certainly attracted, even if it's to a feminine man. Like a male homosexual might be attracted to slightly feminine men, but still wants that male interaction. Like there's some sort of like frequency in the interaction between a man and a man, a woman, a man, and a man and a
yeah,
woman.
yeah, because homosexuality is biological sex. All sexuality is on biological sex. It's not on gender identity.
Hmm.
So I guess that kind
But
of
are
ties
you
in.
attracted to, insofar as you're attracted to someone, you're attracted to a gender, are you not? And that gender and the way that the body overlaps with that gender is gets you all riled up in a way, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. But basically, so sexuality is determined by biological sex. People aren't attracted to a gender role, or people aren't attracted to
Hmm.
physically attracted to like anything except like the biological sex. Like that's what determines your sexuality. Yeah,
Hmm.
you can have a preference, like say a guy has a preference for more feminine women or for less feminine women, you know? He can still be straight. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? Like
Yeah. Okay.
he's not attracted to the femininity or masculinity. He's attracted to women, but he
Hmm.
can possibly have like a preference.
Hmm.
But see, so okay, so like a lot of people in the trans movement really get on people for excluding trans people because they say
Hmm.
that okay, so like the biggest argument is trans women, you know, harass lesbians a lot of the time because they say that lesbians should be attracted to the
To
fact that they
the female
identify
penis. Yeah.
as female.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, lesbians are not attracted to males.
Hmm.
You know, that's just by nature of what a lesbian is. That's just not attracted to males. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
what they do or how much makeup or whatever they do.
Hmm.
It's just a
Okay.
fact. You know, it's nothing against trans
Okay.
women. It's just that, does that make
Hmm.
sense? That's all
Yeah.
I'm trying to convey, I
Okay.
think. Yeah, I worded it in a little bit of a confusing way.
No, not at
But
all. It's a
yeah, just
very,
the
very
point is,
complex
yeah,
topic.
it's such a complex situation. It's just my point is I want to make sure because people are not attracted to a gender identity or to like a gender presentation.
Hmm.
It's you can be like, okay, I'm really struggling to like put this into words.
I mean, are I? Because I'm attracted to womanly women. That's what I'm attracted to. Like, so I'm
But you're
attracted
not
to the
attracted to
body.
feminine men, are you? Or say hypothetically you're a straight man, you're attracted to womanly women, but you're
Okay,
not attracted to womanly men.
to womanly
You're
men.
attracted to females, but you like them to look feminine. If you
And
just
and
liked
and
the
act.
feminine aspect, you'd be attracted to men who looked feminine, right?
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying like, yeah, you can absolutely have a preference and like be attracted to that for sure, like someone's gender presentation.
Hmm.
I'm just saying that sexuality innately, what your sexuality you're born with is based on someone else's biological sex and your own biological sex.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Another
But it's
personal
preference.
question then to get back to you.
Yeah.
How do you think that your sexuality changed when you went to being a trans man and then going out of that? Like, and by that, like the people that you were
Yeah.
attracted to and who you wanted to be attracted to. Like, do you notice a change? What was the change?
Well, I don't that's kind of a complicated question also. Like I spent a long time again with the like repressed
Mm,
like homosexuality and stuff like that. I spent a lot of time like identifying as bisexual and saying I was, but the entire time I was not. Like I am
mm,
solely attracted to women.
mm.
So I don't think my sexuality changed. I think I sort of maybe told myself that it did, but it was all like a hypothetical.
Oh, okay, so the
Every time I thought of
context in
actually
which the sexuality would play out was different because you were
exactly
acting as a male, or
exactly because like okay, so I never took testosterone, like I don't know. I've heard of things like people's sexuality changing
mm,
when they take actual like medical like cross-sex hormones. So like I believe sexuality is innate. I believe you're born loving whoever you love, being gay,
mm.
straight, bi, whatever the fuck. Um, However, I think there is room for like research and possible questions of as to whether sexuality can change with medical intervention. I don't
Mm.
know. I don't want to give really like an opinion on that because I really don't know. But for me, since I never medicalized, I don't believe my sexuality changed. I
Okay.
think I was again so repressed. I I may have mentally thought that like it did,
Okay.
but I realize now that it didn't.
So it
If
was
I
like it was a way, in a way, to summarize what you're saying and refine this statement. Being a trans man was a way of getting around the fact of who you were attracted to, or kind of gaming that
Yeah,
attraction so it was more palpable
absolutely. It's because I
to you.
wanted to think of myself as a straight dude as opposed to like a gay woman.
Huh.
Yeah, that was a large part of it. And again, that goes back to the homophobia.
Mm. And how did things start to change for you and you desisting from thinking of yourself as a man?
Yeah, so a big part of that, when I was 17, I graduated high school, and I pretty much immediately spent 9 months doing an internship in a place where I had almost no internet, so I was disconnected from social media.
Huh.
I was doing a ton of really physical work. I was working on a horse farm for 9 months, like crazy hours all the time, lots of strenuous physical work. So essentially, I just spent 9 months away from all of this like internet addiction that I had, and
Hmm.
I just didn't have the access to what I had access to before, all of that. That was feeding into this desire and
Hmm.
just like exacerbating it. Um, so yeah, I think I matured a lot emotionally and physically during that period. And just by the time I came back, I was more secure within myself. I had
Hmm.
sort of had to,
Grounded.
when you're doing a lot of physical work, you have to kind of accept your body and what it can do and use it. Um, I was using like heavy machinery and stuff, so I was like, I better better pay attention. So that was very helpful for me. And I think, yeah, just by the time I came back, I was much more mature. I was in a very different space than I was when I'd left. And yeah, I was just able to sort of take a little bit of a step back, slow down a little bit, look a little bit more critically
Hmm.
at what I was doing and this ideology. And then I ended up getting into just more of like a radical feminist kind of section of the internet, and reading a little bit more about that, and then that helped me come to terms with it, because I met a lot of other people online who were detransitioners or desisters who had been through the same thing. Again, so.
And mostly female to male?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost exclusively. Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like you suffered from dysphoria as it's described by male to female. Like, or did you have a dysphoria?
Male to female?
I know a lot of male to female. I know a lot of trans women who describe dysphoria that's like really rooted in like this desire to be feminine and this dislike of being male, like this very strong gut internal thing. That you don't really describe like a dysphoria in that way. It seems like a social level dysphoria.
It was definitely a mixture. So yeah, I did very much actively reject being female. Like I said, I was very dissociated from myself. I refused to accept my body. I wanted to alter it. I would have like screaming fights with my mother over it. So it was definitely a very active dislike of being female.
Of perceiving yourself as female or being perceived as female, or a mixture of both?
Both. Absolutely both. Yeah. For, again, various reasons. And I think dysphoria, it's such like a vague term, in all honesty. Like there's so many different definitions for it. It manifests so differently in everyone. I just think it means something different to everyone, in all honesty. It's not like a one size fits all. It definitely is something that varies. Yeah.
It seems like from the small amount of literature that I've read and articles that I've read, it seems that there is a particular vulnerability of teenage girls specifically to entering into transition because of a social desire or like a social contagion. Like the way that it pops up is in these clusters of people. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's true? Do you think that that young women are particularly vulnerable to this?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen the study by Lisa Littman on rapid onset gender dysphoria?
I have.
Okay, yeah. So absolutely. So yeah, I believe that's a very real phenomenon. I think my experience is actually a really almost pretty much spot on example of that, because it came on very rapidly, probably when I was, just turned 16. I was figuring stuff out.
There's a crisis in your life, social crisis that kind of catalyzed that. Exactly.
It was very much influenced by my social circle, social media. It came on very rapidly within the span of a couple months, and it was very tumultuous and intense. And yeah, it was rapid onset gender dysphoria. I believe that is a thing. There's definitely intricacies to that. But the thing is, like, that needs to be taken seriously because people are medically transitioning because of that.
Yeah.
The other people in my project have also experienced that. And they actually medicalized because of that dysphoria. And they then realized later that was not the right path for them.
Is there a way to get awareness out to young women about being aware, or like what are some of the things that would have slowed you down other than your mother, barring you from the hormones? Do you think it was just kind of like a rite of passage that you just had to go through?
Yeah, that's a question I've actually thought a lot about. I don't know. I think, if there was just more of the other side provided, which is what we're trying to provide with this project, that's kind of the point, is just giving that other narrative. And, if detransitioners and sisters weren't so silenced for some weird reason. So
they are. So you feel that they are actively silenced. I mean, I've seen that, but I want your take on that. And why do you think they are silenced? Because I had to actively search them out. Like I said, when I returned that internship, I had to actively look for them. The algorithms didn't just shuffle them to you.
No,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, the algorithms push all the trans timelines into your face,
huh.
but I didn't even think about detransition as a concept. Like it didn't even come up because I saw no like experiences. There were no YouTube videos of that. Like it's just for whatever reason it's silenced and no one wants to hear those stories. Um, so I think that would have been very, very immensely helpful to me and to a lot of people who were going through it at that time and who still are.
Yeah.
So just hearing that other side
Yeah.
and people who've been through it,
Yeah. Tales
because
from the other side.
exactly, the trans movement just makes it seem like there's no risk of detransition, that's like a 0.5% statistic or something, which is not right. But they phrase it in that way. And honestly, I don't know why they do, but I believe that is something that needs to be changed for sure.
So aside from your social factors and your personal factors, the trauma and the society, all that stuff, what else is appealing about the trans narrative for a young girl? Like what's the strength of that narrative? What's so compelling about that? Is it like something about becoming male that is kind of like a symbolic journey of like actualizing the self, or I mean that's all kind of gobbledygook, but what do you think is so attractive about the story?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, like it definitely varies person to person. Um, I think some just because I think the social aspect of it is huge because it is becoming like a fad in a lot of ways because there's so many more than there ever were, and like the amount of people who are transitioning, especially young girls, is just growing like crazy. So I think, when you're like a, 13, 14, 15-year-old girl, like you want to be part of the crowd, you want to be part of the pack, you want to be
Okay.
popular. I think that's a large aspect of it for sure, the social thing, which is another reason I think that really needs to be talked about. But yeah, and I think again, girls who want to fit in, girls who are gender nonconforming, who see this option of conforming to gender in the form of being a man. It's just in a lot of ways it's easier. That's part of the draw is it's easier to be a gender conforming man than a gender non-conforming woman.
How is it easier?
Just existing in the world as gender nonconforming, as a man or a woman. It's, we live in a decently homophobic society, regardless of, who you surround yourself with immediately. You're still exposed to that in media and honestly everywhere to a certain extent. And it's just, even for me, like I'm obviously fairly gender nonconforming. I get looked at when I go out in public sometimes. I can feel people judging me a lot of times, and and it's very easy to go back into that thinking of wanting to transition, and a lot of it is honestly just like it's like theoretical. I think a lot of people is they feel very uncomfortable being gender nonconforming. So again, like what I did is I lived in this sort of almost fantasy world. Like theoretically, I would never be harassed. My life would be perfect if I transitioned. Which is not necessarily the case, but it's that, and I think young people are very susceptible to that as well.
Yeah, this odd mixture of sticking out and fitting in at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, it's so hard to be that age, and it gets harder constantly. There's so much to deal with at that age of like coming to terms with yourself, and a lot of people are coming to terms with sexuality at that age, and dealing with going through puberty, like all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's a very vulnerable age.
Yeah. And do you think that there's I mean, somebody, and this is probably derogatory. I don't mean it derogatory, but like I've heard it likened to, the emo phase or the goth phase. My generation, we had the goth phase, and it seems like there's like just this youthful congruence or confluence. It's rebellious, it's sexy, and then everybody like champions it at the same time. So again, you stick out and you fit in at the same time. Then you get to flip the bird to, society
and it's
or
strength
whatever.
in numbers. It's easier to rebel in numbers. So
So I wonder like if it'll slalom, like the youth will slalom into something else. But the problem with this particular fad, I guess tattoos are forever, but there's certain things that happen when you go on testosterone as a biologically sexed woman, that I think might be more or less irreversible. There's surgical operations that are more or less irreversible.
Yeah, testosterone is not something to fuck around with. It's very, even in the first couple months, it makes a lot of changes to your body. Yeah, I think that needs to be more emphasized too. A lot of people think it's just this, casual drug that you inject and you can just go back anytime and everything's fine. And it's like, no, a lot of it is irreversible and you're going to be dealing with those effects forever, And it's not like those people, there's nothing wrong with those people's bodies or who they are. It's just, it's still a lot of changes that you want to be sure that you're going to be willing, to accept and deal with.
Yeah. And it just, due to the way that it's framed especially in, I don't want to call it progressivism itself, but like this, I just saw this phrase that was it was so disturbing to me. It was like gender affirming surgery is what it's called now. Like this affirmation, this culture of affirmation coming from the people in authority, the doctors, psychologists, the parents, these large groups, these interest groups that are pushing this stuff. The adults in the room are making it so that we can't act like adults about this. We can't slow down and really consider our options. I'm kind of pissed off about that. What's your thoughts on that? And why do you think it come about? And how do we stop that?
Yeah, it's honestly like kind of baffling in a way. Like I've never heard of honestly a movement like this where like any possible inkling of like dissension to any aspect of it is like you're instantly, like I said, you're called like a TERF and you're called violent. You're banned by Twitter. Like the fuck, It doesn't make any sense to me. We need to be able to think critically and like, look, I have no issue with trans people existing. Like that's their thing. Like, fine, do what you want. I don't wish any harm on trans people. They deserve rights, But I do have issues with some parts of the movement, but I can't voice those because I instantly get called like, violent and a Nazi even, just because I have issues with some aspects of maybe harming like young women. Like there's no room for like nuance. It's literally just their way or the highway. And I think part of it is pharmaceutical companies. I hate to say this, but they have a lot of stock in it in terms of financial, they're making money off medicalization of young people. And that is really disturbing to me, because it's one thing, like, look, if someone wants to transition, like, I don't care, like, do it. I'm not going to police someone's body, but I think it is purposefully misrepresented in the interests of these companies making money off of people. And then, when they want to detransition, they're silenced and cast aside because these companies don't want anyone questioning it because there goes their money, And that's part of the reason it's been able to take such a hold, I think, partially is because they have like big pharma and like the entire medical industry behind it. And that's such a huge voice and has such influence. That's part of the reason it's, they're everywhere, the reach of those companies.
Yeah.
So
with your group, Peak Resilience, what are some of the tactics that you guys are trying to use? Are you going to be non-combative? Are you not going to focus on the TRA stuff and just try to put out a message specifically for young women? Or
honestly, I'm not 100% sure. The goal right now is just to raise as much awareness as we possibly can about our stories. Like, again, none of us, like, I speak for all of us when I say, like, we're not trying to like take away rights from trans people, which I know we get accused of and will continue to be accused of. But yes, like I think it's important for us not just to raise awareness on detransition, but also to help people question the movement a little bit, because you have to be able to question it in order to help, these young people. And there also are aspects of the transgender movement that harm women, I believe. So it's just such a complicated topic. I think we're not 100% sure. We're sort of going with it. I mean,
Okay.
myself, Helena, and Jesse are going to talk with Sheila Jeffries in a few weeks in New York. You might have heard of that. And she is rather inflammatory. So we'll see if that
Helps or hinders.
changes anything. I don't know at this point, but
Is
yeah.
she Sheila Jeffries? I don't know her. Is she a trans woman or a feminist or what?
So she's a radical feminist.
Oh, rad femme. Okay.
Yeah, she wrote Gender Hurts in I think
Okay.
2015, which was, very mixed reviews. It's very, very radical feminist.
Okay. How radical on a 1 to 10 pain scale, but switching to radical feminism? Where do you land right now?
Scale. Where's she at? You said?
No, where do you think you're at? If I don't really understand what radical feminism means. I think it's one of those things that everybody has their own. Every radical feminist has their own.
Yeah. Again, radical feminism. Oh my God, I can't talk. Radical feminism is it's not one ideology. It's also very broad. But essentially, radical feminism is about women's like liberation more, whereas liberal feminism is about like equality between the sexes.
Okay.
If that makes sense. That's like the very, very basic
Okay.
thing. I would recommend if you look into it a little bit,
Mhm.
you might probably find a better explanation than I would be able to give you.
Okay.
Because again,
Well,
it's very
where do you think where how does it inform you right now?
Yeah, so I mean, on a scale, like I'm definitely not a liberal feminist. I it depends on the issue. Like in all honesty, it's not just about the trans movement. It's about like everything
Mhm.
ever.
Mhm.
So overall, probably like 7 or 8 on the scale.
Okay.
10 being
Right.
like most radical feminist, 1 being like total liberal feminist. And yeah.
And what kind of content are you focusing on right now? You guys are doing videos as a group. Do you write articles yourself, or are you doing like slamming social media with little witty posts on Tumblr, or how are you
I
doing
don't know about
outreach?
witty, but somewhat lame. No, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to be more active, like on Twitter. I just recently like sort of got back into it. A couple of the other people are very active on Twitter, and they have like bigger accounts. So they handle like the snark aspects. I'm catching up slowly. I don't really know how to use Twitter, but yeah. So we definitely are planning to do some articles. Like we set up a Patreon. We're gonna have like some exclusive content there with articles.
Mhm.
But yeah, at the moment, I'm focused on like we're each gonna give a 10-minute talk in New York, so I'm focused on that right now. But
Oh,
after
cool.
that, I think I do want to more tackle some articles
Great.
and some writing. And then yeah, we're gonna continue to do videos. We just put out a podcast a couple days ago.
Great.
We're gonna continue with those. Probably more podcasts just because we all live separately, so
Yeah.
videos are gonna be a little bit of a difficulty.
Well, now that you know that Skype works, you can.
Yeah, at times, yes.
And do you guys have any plans, or are you thinking ahead in the future of doing workshops or contacting or giving a place for young women to contact you, or doing mentorships or something like that?
Yeah. So we do. We have a Tumblr, we have a website, Twitter, and YouTube. So we've basically been having people contact us on all of those platforms.
Okay.
I actually specifically on my Twitter, I have in my bio that like young people who might be questioning their gender should just talk to me if they need support or advice on that.
Okay.
And I've already had several people contact me, which has been really such a cool experience. So I'm hoping to continue with that. And again, it's not like I'm talking to them with an agenda. It's just,
Yeah.
giving advice and giving my own personal experience and hoping to, answer any questions that they have. So I think that's very important to talk to people even like one-on-one in that aspect, as well
Yeah.
as providing this content. And we're trying to inform the parents as well. A lot of
Okay.
our content, like honestly, most of the questions we've had like on Twitter publicly are from these parents who
Yeah.
have like trans identified kids. They have no idea what to do. They need our
Yeah.
advice. So we're trying to strike a balance of helping the kids and the parents, if that makes sense.
What
as well.
what's the kind of advice that parents need to know to weather this, or to be supportive, but I guess not totally supportive. I don't know. Like how do you
Yeah.
know where to draw the line? What's the advice that you give?
Yeah, so well, most parents they're like freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, my kid said they're trans. Like, what do I do? Do I let them transition?"
Hmm.
Because like a lot of these parents, when they were growing up, they didn't have this trans movement. They had nothing like it. It was they're not familiar with it. They're kind of confused by it. Um,
Hmm.
and they're a lot older than their kids. I think a lot of them are more leaning on the side of not allowing it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they're just, it's hard because like I hated my mom, like because she didn't let me. So a lot of them,
Yeah.
they're afraid of losing that relationship with their
Yeah.
kid, but they're also afraid of allowing medicalization.
Hmm.
So that's the main issue we get. And honestly, my advice to parents generally, like I don't want to make like a blanket statement, but
Yeah.
I generally say that I would err on the side of waiting because, if your kid wants to transition, they can always transition later. But if they end up wanting to detransition, that's a lot to deal with.
Okay.
You
How
know, I
how
just err on the side of waiting until they're at least like 18,
okay.
That's just my personal opinion. Yeah.
And how irrevocable is puberty?
Well, I don't believe in puberty blockers. It's like experimental drugs.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
think a small child, especially like prepubescent, has saying that they're the opposite sex is reason to
Hmm.
sterilize and medicalize them, which is what those drugs do.
Hmm.
Um,
And
I
by
think those,
medicalize them, you mean they're basically a ward of the medical state
yeah,
as
they're
soon as they.
dependent on drugs for the rest of their lives,
Okay.
and they'll be just funneling money because
Hmm.
it's.
Okay.
I think that's barbaric. In all honesty, is giving children, literal children who haven't even gone through puberty, blockers, and I will never agree with that. In all honesty, um, as for puberty, I just think it's always better to just wait a little bit and see. Because if you give puberty blockers and you give cross-sex hormones at such a young age, like these kids, they don't know what they want. They're still figuring out like who they are as people,
Hmm.
and I don't believe that it's a lot of a bigger decision than a lot of the trans activists make it out to be. Like I said, they make it seem like this just little thing. Oh, you can just, have a sex change, no problem. And like that's a huge, huge decision that affects you for the rest of your life, regardless of whether you detransition or not. It's always going to affect you. And I don't think that's a decision that a child can or should make for themselves. Um, so I think yes, if a kid goes through puberty and later wants to be trans or wants to transition, um,
Hmm.
I think that's an issue to deal with later. That's my opinion on that. I think
Hmm.
I don't think puberty should be messed with children.
It's interesting that we have the capacity to change something rather than accept it, but I think that it's just delaying acceptance with regards to the body. You're going to have to accept your body eventually.
Hmm.
And we can change the body into what you think you want, but you're
Yeah,
still going to have to accept it. And acceptance is
exactly.
more of like the, traditional wisdom tradition kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, I'm just again so grateful that I didn't go through with that because now I've learned to accept myself and I'm happy with who I am as a person. So I think it's possible. Again, I don't want to speak for everyone. I don't want to be like offensive or anything like that, but I think that acceptance needs to be
Hmm.
more pushed. I think there should be more sort of hoops to jump through before you can just like get hormones. Like
Hmm.
informed consent, I think needs to be changed. There
Hmm.
needs to be more like a therapeutic aspect and like I don't think like people should be barred from getting hormones. I just think it needs to be taken more seriously. It really does.
Do you think that there should be a mandatory 9 month on a horse ranch before transition?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that shit will change you.